Hey y'all, welcome back. This is Talk Your Shit with Deja, where we drop the eye because not only can I talk my shit, but I want you to talk your shit too. Hey y'all, hope you're all doing well this week. I actually am annoyed a little bit. So I'm recording this right, and I had to this is actually a re-recording because I recorded the full episode and realized I had no sound. Oh, y'all, I am so upset because what I would have given y'all was creme de la creme, like tears, all that, you know, realness, everything, which I genuinely don't feel like it's gonna be like that this time around because I just went through all of that stuff. I wish that I could share that with y'all, but all I have is the video. I have no sound because I did not turn on the mic. And so I have beautifulness with no sound to it. Ugh. So much for relating, especially if I can't put out, the in real time of me talking about these different experiences and everything to let you see the tears flow, to let you see everything. Ah, I am so annoyed. But the show must go on because I gotta get that. I gotta get you something. I gotta get you the content. So this is take two of Talk Your Shit with Deja, Aces, emotional abuse. Because, like I mentioned last week, I'm going to be going through the aces that pertain to me. And so, the one I want to start with this week is emotional abuse, because that is the one of all the abuses that I went through. That's crazy. You're going to see a smile on my face because I'm trying not to get upset. But I'm talking about a heavy subject, and it it probably isn't gonna hit the same. It sucks, y'all. Like, I really just recorded an hour of pure gold, and I have no sound. I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep a smile on my face. I really am. I really am. And it's like God works in mysterious ways, because maybe something about that didn't need to go out. I don't know what it was that didn't need to go out, but something about it didn't need to go out because I didn't have a sound. So take two. But yes, this week I'm going to be talking about the emotional abuse that I went through as a child and how it has had an impact on my life, and how it still comes up for me today, how I am handling it and everything like that. The walls it has helped me to create. Well, was it help? But that has forced me to create and everything like that. So I'm gonna go through that. Well, since this is take two, I'll actually do what I intended to do first, which is go through the definition of emotional abuse before I start telling my story. Before, I was just telling my story and going through the story. I didn't even look at the laptop. Y'all know me. I love a website. So I found a website. So I want to go through what emotional abuse is. It says that emotional abuse, sometimes called psychological abuse, is a pattern of behavior that damages a child's sense of self worth and negatively impacts their emotional development. In addition to withholding love and support, the person emotionally abusing the child also may reject, criticize, threaten, demean, berate the child. They also may humiliate, am I saying that right? Humiliate the child, engage in name calling, and assault them. Um, so it says that some different signs to look out for to possibly come to a conclusion that the child around you, the children around you, yourself, well, I guess you would know if yourself has been emotionally abused, never mind. The children around you, the you know, or anybody around you has been through emotional abuse. It says that some signs that could come up for them is anxiety, depression, or avoidance, declining performance at school, delayed emotional development, desire to hurt themselves or other people, desperately seeking affection from other adults. Sorry. uh, Developmental regression, for example, bedwetting, frequent complaints of headaches, stomach aches, or other somatic symptoms with no known cause, loss of interest in social activities or other interests, and low self esteem. Again, those are some things. Not guaranteed that all of those things or any of those things can show up, and your child may still be experiencing emotional abuse, or maybe you notice that those things show up in yourself. That could be a result of emotional abuse, possibly. So maybe it's time to do a little bit of reflection, or seek help if you need it. Therapy is always an option. Um, but yeah, those are some things to look out for. So as far as like me going through emotional abuse, it wasn't ever really too much inflicted by the adults around me. The only thing I can recall that the adults did that really hit home for me was talked about my crying. Um, being a black person in being a black person in America, being being a part of a black family. Oh, y'all, I really don't like that I messed up. It feels so impersonal now because I'm telling the story all over again. But being a a part of a black family, crying is not acceptable most of the time, if not all of the time. Crying is made to be seen as something weak. You only cry if you're weak. Like, don't do that. Shut it down. Everything. So, for for me, how it showed up is like everybody would call me dramatic for crying. When I was younger, I always got called dramatic. Um, if I am in a situation where I'm like going back and forth with somebody or whatever the case may be, the situation is going to overwhelm me and I'm going to cry. Something that I learned is that crying is a way to process emotions, right? One of the ways in which our body processes emotions, if they're very overwhelming, our body will cry to get all of the energy, well, not all of it, but get a lot of the energy out of me or out of people. So that's something that I learned that I do is I'm a natural crier. When I am very overwhelmed by emotion, I will cry. If something makes me feel emotional in the moment, whether that be happy, yeah, happy, sad, angry, frustrated, whatever if it's an intense emotion, in order for my body to regulate itself, it's going to cry. Well, when you're younger in a black family, they don't really know that. So they're gonna call you dramatic. They're gonna say you're being extra. They're gonna say you're being manipulative, which is why if I come across anything online where people be like, "Oh, women use tears to manipulate a situation and everything," I'm just like, I'm gonna comment and be like, that's not true for all women. That's probably not true for a lot of women. Um, for me specifically, like I just said, my body does that to regulate itself, period, point blank. And that's it, that's all. Like, continue the conversation, continue what you're talking about, continue to go on. Like, me crying does not mean to stop the conversation by any means necessary. It does not mean to do anything. Now, when I was younger, it definitely signified a lot of different emotions. Like, I would be frustrated and cry. I'd be annoyed and cry, angry and cry. Like, any overwhelming emotion. Sad, of course, but any overwhelming emotion, I'm crying. And then when you're arguing, because our family is yellers, right? So you're arguing back and forth, you're yelling, I'm yelling and crying. And something I also realized about myself that I still do a little bit to this day, but it's a little bit more controlled because I'm older. But when I was younger, because I have eczema, right, which is dry skin, I when I'm like very annoyed, agitated, or whatever, I would get really itchy. So now I'm yelling at you, I'm crying, I'm itching, I'm doing all types of stuff. Like, and so I got called dramatic, that I'm being extra, that I'm like manipulating a situation, that nothing's really wrong with me. And you're just, and it's crazy because, like, that's why, like, in the, what was it, the attachments episode where I talked about like some days my mom would be attuned to my emotions and some days she wouldn't, because a lot of the times like my family would try to be like, oh, you're just crying to make your mama come save you or something like that, because I had a mom that cared. I'm sorry that I had a mom that cared, but sometimes I had a mom that was like, okay, you doing too much crying, and she'll call you dramatic and everything too. So it's just like, oh shit. And like, you never know when you would be saved versus not saved. Like, and that's where it creates that anxious attachment. But it's just like, it was so many times where it was like, oh, you're crying just to, so your mom can come and save you, or so you can get out of doing something and all this other stuff. And it's like, no, bitch, I'm crying because my body is crying. Like, that's it. That's all. Like, that's it. That's all. That's why I'm crying. Now there might be emotions attached to it, but because y'all are not y'all are not equipped to know what emotions are, can't nobody help me figure out what emotion is coming up for me right now. So I don't know it. Y'all don't know it. And so we're all just trying to figure it out. But because again, it's deemed as weak, you're getting demeaned instead of helped. So I know, like, for me too, like, I truly understand why they say hurt people, because the moment my little brother was born, I've realized just how similar we are. Mind you, my little brother is 11 years younger than me. So it's weird how similar we were as kids. It got to be a genetic thing. Like, when they say genetics are passed down, they're really passed down. But like, when my little brother came along and as he grew up, he did the exact same thing as me. And I would find myself doing the exact same thing as everybody else. To me, I think I was finally able to make fun of somebody doing it instead of being the one being made fun of. And so I jumped on the make fun of the crying person train. In hindsight, I definitely feel bad for doing that, because in those moments, my little brother probably really needed somebody to understand, you know, rather than pick on him for crying. Especially for him, it probably was worse because he's a boy. At least for me, I feel like people understand a girl crying, but for him, it's just like, you're a boy, that's gay, or man, like, all the stereotypical things that come with the boy crying, which sucks. Like, if we're going on a little tangent, just a little tangent, like, it sucks that men are not allowed to do something human. Like, I just came, like, I seen the the post, or I heard about the post or whatever it was, where K Michelle was like, if a man cries in front of her, she feels like the man in the relationship or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, I don't know, because I didn't go check out the bullshit. But it's just like, men aren't capable of doing human shit sometimes. Like, crying is a human function. It's something that we are like, that we do as soon as we come out the vagina. Our first line of communication is to cry. You cry to let somebody know you're alive. You cry to let somebody know you're hungry. You cry to let somebody know you need your diaper changed. You cry to let somebody know you're sleepy. You cry to let somebody know you have indigestion problems. Like, your line of communication when your baby is crying. Nobody was like, when you were a baby, nobody was like, stop crying, you're a boy. You're a boy. Like, that wasn't even a thing. So it's crazy to think that as they got older, that was placed on them, like, stop crying, you're a boy, like, man up. When they were a baby, You couldn't tell them to stop crying, because what else they was gonna do? I mean, you could have told them to stop crying, but it wasn't gonna work. They're a baby. To me, it makes me think that somewhere down the line in our generations, somebody had like postpartum, because that to me would be the only way in which you are annoyed by crying, or again, all of the shit from slavery that was passed down to us, because I can only imagine that they probably couldn't cry on on the plantation. Like, that probably wasn't a thing. Like, crying, you probably had to cry by your lonesome. You probably couldn't cry in front of nobody. That probably definitely signified weakness to master. Like, so it's like that probably passed down postpartum, somewhere in the line where that's passed down. Like, somewhere it had to be placed in us that a human function makes you weak. And it sucks, because I was the human that was going to do my human function, and I was made to feel bad for it. And I noticed that caused me to not let nobody know what was wrong with me, like, at all. Like, it really caused me to go in a shell and figure out everything by myself, which as a child you should not be doing, because we do not have the critical thinking skills to process stuff by ourselves. But, if I bring it to you, you tell me some stupid shit, you're gonna make me feel worse than before I brought it to you. So let me just figure it out by myself. I'm gonna figure it out by myself. I'm not even gonna bring it to you. So it's like that was definitely one of them ones that just, it hit different. Because it not only came from the adults, it came from the siblings and the cousins and everything. Like, everybody picked on me for crying. And so, you know, I would say to this day I don't like crying, but like, I really don't like that crying is my first, it's like my first thing that I do when I'm like really emotionally overwhelmed, but I embrace it way more. Or not necessarily embrace it, but I definitely don't beat myself up for it. Like, I used to hate that I cried. I used to hate that I was a human. That's crazy to think that you hate that you're a human, because that's what crying signifies, that you're human. But I used to hate it. I used to hate crying. I used to hate showing that weakness. I used to really think it was weak, and now honestly I feel strong when I do it. I feel so much lighter, which is probably why I'm also smiling throughout this whole video, because on the previous the previous recording, I had tears dropping down my face when I was talking about this. I was going through the emotions because they did come up for me in that moment. But now that I'm going through it, I'm like, okay. And I don't need to cry because my body is not overwhelmed by the emotion at the moment. I really wish I could have shared that with y'all, because I want y'all to know, like, I'm a bucket full of tears, but you gonna know that as you continue to watch these episodes. But I'm a bucket full of tears. And it's okay if you're a bucket full of tears too. But it's so cleansing, because now I can go through these these memories and the recollection and not have to drop tears. I can smile almost through it, because it it doesn't feel as heavy as when I just told the story. But I wish I could have shared that moment with y'all, because I like being real, um, honest and open. But like I said, God must have didn't want that video to go out, or this was a learning moment to show y'all that once the tears come out of your body, you can show up in a different way. Like, you don't have to let the tears define you either. Like, you can bust those tears out and continue to talk about the situation, because I bust those tears out like 30 minutes ago, and I'm able to talk about the situation and don't even have a tear for it. Like, yeah. So that was the one from the adults that got the best of me. Like, it really had me put up a wall to adults, the adults in my family. Like, I'm really not a fan of them because of that. Though, I do feel like everybody looks at it a different way now that we're older. I don't know. For some reason, I feel like this family doesn't like children. And I don't know if it's me or like Loki, because when children are doing childrenly things, our family does not like it. But when they're doing adult things, like when the little kids are doing adult things, it's like that's fun. Unless they're talking back, because then it's like you gotta be a child. You can't talk back because that's too grown. But it's like you cry, you're weak. You you play around too much, you need to sit down and be quiet. Like, and I even find myself doing that too with my nephew. Like, it's crazy. Like, low key, I feel like it's been passed out, and I don't know what that is. Like, where I low key feel like, depending on the headspace, you do not like being around children, like at all, like at all. And so you really felt that as a child. Like, low key, you felt like the adults didn't like you. Then when you were acting like the adults, they didn't like you. So it's just like shit. When the fuck do you like me? I can't be a kid and you like me. Can't do kid things and you like me. Unless it's like the good kid things. I can't do the crying or the temper tantrums or being too loud or too rambunctious or whatever. But, and then if I'm sitting with the grown folks, now I'm being too grown, or if I'm doing certain things, now I'm being too fast, and all this. Like, how do you be a kid sometimes? How do you show up as a kid sometimes? Is really confusing. Like, what is appropriate for kids to do in this family sometimes? That I really wonder. So I find myself having to check myself so much because, like, it definitely was passed down to me where, like, Loki, I don't, unless I'm in the headspace for it, I do not like children. And that might not be like a just a us thing. It might be an everybody thing. Like, Loki, the headspace you in, maybe you don't like children because children really are carefree and don't give a fuck. And when you have to give a fuck, like, you don't even like that they so carefree and don't give a fuck. Like, their happiness sometimes irritates your spirit. Like, literally, when you have children, that's when you learn just how fucked up we are as adults because their kidness irritates your spirit. Why? Because somebody made you feel like that when you were a kid. And so now hurt people, you gotta pass it along. It's just like you'll find yourself having to catch yourself because you don't want to be the same people that hurt you. Like, you don't want to become the same individuals that inflicted pain upon you. But of course, you're going to have your days. You're going to be triggered sometimes. You're going to pass along what you learned just because it is rooted in you. It's not until you create those neural pathways, where you start thinking different and catch yourself and be like, you know what, that is kid stuff. like like my nephew, the testosterone in his body, like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. He has so much energy and he's playful as hell. It irritates my spirit, and it's crazy because I can only imagine that I probably was just like him when I was younger. And I probably irritated somebody's spirit, and that's why it irritates my spirit sometimes. But if I'm in the right headspace, I could play with him. I could be just as extra as him and everything. But then sometimes I'm just like, go sit down somewhere, like, chill out, like, calm down, like, and it's like, I don't want to strip him like we were stripped. And so you gotta consciously be catching yourself like all the time, because the last thing you want to do is continue to pass along the negativity that was passed to us. But it's just like, look, yeah, I don't think this family like children sometimes. Like, sometimes I really don't. They really do get punished for being kids, and Like, some things deserve punishment because you do need discipline, but there's a way to discipline. But some things is like they're really just kids, and if you didn't teach them better, how they gonna know better? If you didn't teach them something different, how they gonna know something different? So it's like you got to be mindful of that. Um, but yeah, the other way that I was emotionally abused didn't too much come from the adults. It mostly came from like my siblings and my cousins and them. Like, I was hella bullied inside my household. Like, super bullied. And I don't think they were intentionally like bullying me. Like I said, hurt people. So maybe they were just passing along or whatever. On top of black people, we have normalized cracking jokes on people and don't realize sometimes that we might be lowering their self-esteem by cracking jokes on them. But yeah, we have normalized it. Because whereas you may be trying to crack a joke and be laughing and having fun and everything, me on the other end, I'm internalizing this and really thinking something's wrong with me. And though I may be trying to laugh and trying to figure out where it's funny, I'm really like losing it on this end. Like, I'm really like, okay, what the fuck? Does nobody like me? Like, what's going on here? Because I'm confused. Like like I just like I mentioned, I have eczema, dry skin, right? So like, one would think that when I go outside as a kid, people would have made fun of me because of my eczema. Like, when I went outside, I really wasn't too much made fun of. A lot of people would ask questions, and of course, little kids, they're gonna little kids don't give a fuck. So they're gonna ask questions, and it might be rude questions like, ew, what happened to you? Or something like that. Or older people would be like, oh my god, did you get burned? Or something like that. But it was question based. When I came inside my household, I was actually made fun of for my eczema. Like, I used to be called a snake, an alligator. Like, they used to tell me I had scales, right? So when I am in the bed and I'm scratching, or if my skin is scraping up against the covers, it's gonna be on the bed. Like, you're gonna see my skin flakes and stuff in the bed. They used to say like it was scales in the bed, like I was a snake that was shedding and all this other stuff, like real deal picking on me and everything. And it's crazy because to this day, I personally still have a hard time seeing my skin in the bed. Like, I am immediately trying to brush it out of my eyesight because of the impact it had on me. Like, I remember there was a time in like elementary school where I would wear long sleeves and long pants, and because my skin like was flaring up terribly, like I would be itching terribly, like to the point where I'm like scratching to bleed, and you know, I could barely even straighten and like bend my arms because it was so inflamed that it hurt. And I remember covering up, and mind you, this wasn't in the winter. I stay in Florida. This was like springtime, summer, like those seasons. I'm like literally long sleeves pants, and my family my family will always ask like, why are you wearing that and it's hot as hell? And I'm just like, in my mind I was just like, why would I why would I not wear it? Like, y'all make fun of me, and I don't be inflamed. Like, y'all make fun of my skin and it be regular, like it's regular. Like, why would I even feel comfortable enough to not have this on? And I'm like, no. Like, I don't even feel comfortable. Granted, like, I like, no, I'm not even gonna give y'all the opportunity to say anything stupid to me. But it's like crazy because they make comments, but then ask me why am I covering it up. Put two and two together. Put two and two together. Come back to the table, and you might have would have known. But again, we're kids, and so I don't think they would have ever been able to put two and two together to really comprehend how the jokes impacted me. Um I was made fun of for my white side. That's what I was told. I'm the white girl of the family or whatever. I went to a predominantly white school from elementary school. Well, pre-K, elementary school, middle school. I went to school with predominantly white people. So, of course, you're going to pick up characteristics and traits from your environment because you're with them majority of the time. So I was quote unquote the white girl. I was picked on for that. I was made fun of because I like Disney, because I wanted to learn the songs and do the dances, and like I listened to pop music versus rap music. Like I was made fun of a lot for the things that I like to do, and that caused me to have like a lot of identity things come up for me in middle school. Because, well, not even just middle school. I remember like, and this actually just came to my mind. I didn't even think about this one. I previously recorded, but I remember in elementary school in fourth grade. Was it fourth grade? I think it was fourth grade. It was this girl. And she was one of the black kids at the school. And it's crazy because whenever it was like black kids that came to the school, depending on the black kids, I always knew I wasn't ghetto. I wasn't trying to fit in with ghetto. That was not my forte. Like you might have seen me hanging out with like the kids that were black to try and like be normal, but the ghetto was never my thing. I can't do ghetto. I can't. I'm sorry. But it was like a new girl that was black, and I would try and fit in with her. I remember like picking on one of my really close guy friends. Like, if I'm not mistaken, he was gay, but he hadn't came out yet. And so I joined in with her to make fun of him for being gay. Like, just trying to fit in with the black girl, like quote unquote black girl. Well, that's not a quote unquote. She's not not quote unquote black. Wait, what am I trying? But I was trying to fit in with the black girl, so I'm like helping her to make fun of a really close guy friend, and it's just like, in those moments of having like lack of judge. Well, I ain't gonna have judgment as a kid. I'm not gonna know better as a kid. I'm just trying to fit in where I could. But honestly, when you're going through it, you don't realize how much your identity is playing like a part in your actions and everything. But when you really get out and well, when you really get out of it, you get older and start reflecting, you realize just how much your identity was questioned and everything. So that was one moment. And then I know too, for me, seventh grade, everything started coming to a head. Like I was losing my white friends, hanging out with the black people. And so that was like tumultuous. Again, gotta go home, get called the white girl, gotta come to school, gotta pick and choose which one. Like seventh grade was so terrible for me. Like my grades slipped. My my attitude was bad. I remember getting ISS for stupid reasons. Like I was in school and I was in geography class. The geography teacher was my like math teacher sixth grade year. He switched over to teaching geography, so we already had like a weird relationship. I remember like asking him to come over to my desk one day, and I just start reciting the letter that Alfalfa wrote to Darla, but I put like his name. I put like his name in it. And so I was like, "Dear Mr. K, I hate your freaking guts. You make me vomit. You're a scum between my toes. Love, Dejanay." He sent me to the office and I got ISS. Like, I was just doing stupid shit. Like, literally. There was a moment too where I like was at PE. I got upset with the PE coach. I don't even remember what happened. I just know that like it was a split second. I had a hockey stick in my hand and we were getting ready to leave. I want to say he said, "Oh, you you're leave the hockey stick over here, or so he says something, and before I know, I tossed that hockey stick. I just like threw it. Mind you, it was like a thick plastic hockey stick. I just threw that bitch. It hit somebody in the eye and cut them in the eye, and I felt terrible because first of all, how did it hit somebody? I don't know. But like I felt terrible because like that split decision made somebody have to get stitches because literally everything was bubbling up inside of me, and he said something and I just tossed that bitch, and just like literally seventh grade year was all of the emotions that I had been holding in and everything. It all just came to a head. Like it all was coming out. Like I was just doing stupid shit. Like grades were slipping. That was the first time in my life I had got like C. Like what was going on with me? I couldn't tell you. Like I was just battling again. Like I was losing my friends at school, like that I had grown up with since kindergarten. I was losing them. They weren't really inviting me to stuff anymore because I was hanging out with the black girls and forming friendships with them. So now I'm like having to learn how to not be friends with the people I've grown up with to be with people that look more like me. Like it was a lot. Like I was going through a lot, and, and so like it was just like the identity thing just took over so much for me at home, and it definitely caused me, like when I mentioned last week that I had suicide ideations, like everything pertaining to the emotional abuse played into why I had suicide attempts. Like I would be in the tub trying to go up under the water, hold myself up under the water, and try not to come back up. But of course, I'm tapping out. Like I'm coming up for air, but I can only imagine how many times I did that, where I was trying to end it all, because I was just like, what? Like, why do I even want to be in this family? It seems like everything is a problem with this family. Do like it seemed like nobody liked me in this family, and so I was just ready to cut the day. There was another time that I tried to take my life. I had a belt and I was in a closet and I was trying to strangle myself. Um, of course, it didn't work. You know, the statistic of women may attempt more, but dudes are more successful. Like that, when you really look at my life, like that statistic is so true because I have attempted so many times but have not been successful by like God's grace. By no means was I supposed to be successful. That's why I'm here sitting with you all, talking to you all. But you know, I've had so many attempts where I wanted to end it all. And you know, the time with the belt, I remember leaving out of that closet. We got in the car to go somewhere, and I shared that. I probably shared it not in the calmest way. I probably was arguing or yelling or something, and I just blurted it out, and it was dismissed. Like it was rejected. It was like, oh, you're being dramatic, ain't no way you tried to do da 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 da. Like people really did not believe me, and I can remember like yelling out that I wanted to die so many times. Like, and every time it's you're dramatic and you're being extra and it's not that serious and all this other stuff, when like there's a lot of kids in this world that may say it and follow through. Or there's a lot of kids that might not even say it but will follow through. And so, honestly, if you're that child, and you're thinking about suicide, then please dial 988. Or if you have children that have mentioned suicide ideations or have said, they're thinking about killing themselves or taking them, like, dial 988 and get some assistance, or, open up that conversation, like, start the conversation and ask them what's going on. Because honestly, if the ones I trusted around me was able to have a real conversation, suicide ideations probably would have stopped in childhood. but they came back up around college time. I didn't attempt or anything like that in college, but they came back up in college. And had I had somebody really take it seriously when I was younger, they probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to come back up. And I wouldn't have felt so isolated. Like I said, like all of the dismissing and invalidating and everything just made me isolate and try and figure stuff out by myself. And as a kid, you should not be trying to figure anything out by yourself. It's not healthy. It's not gonna get you to a positive place. Like, you really need guidance through those emotions, because you're liable to do any damn thing when you are a child and you have to figure it out by yourself. Especially if you have friends around you that are going through the same thing. Now y'all relating, and we're in a health like an unhealthy place, but it feels healthy because I got friends that are going through it with me. Like, and everybody's going through shit, but no, like, nobody's getting help from adults, because when you tell the adults around you that you trust, they're invalidating your experiences. Like, it's disheartening that, I shared that with them, because there's some kids that won't share at all and will just follow through. um it's really disheartening that I shared that with the people around me and they didn't trust or believe me enough to have a conversation with me. um but and I, like, with all of the stuff that was inflicted upon me, like, I really realized, like, how much of a guard I had put up with my family. Like, I am very much so in a place where I am trying to learn how to build trust with them, how to trust that my emotions are safe around them, because previously they were not safe, like, at all. And to this day, I don't know what's safe around them. Like, I was picked on so much that I genuinely have moments where I don't feel like being myself around them. And it's crazy because they're family, you still want to go around them, you still want to see them and everything, but as soon as you get around them, it's like, oh, I don't trust it. I'm like, I don't trust it. I'm gonna just sit here and be here. Um, I don't trust it. And so I'm, like, really in the space of building the trust and working on trusting the people around me. Like, I watch Iyanla, like I mentioned last week. I watched Iyanla fix people's life. I binge watched the whole thing and everything, and she makes a comment all the time to people that you have to call people to greatness, or you have to believe more in them, or see them in a different light. Meaning that, if these people hurt you in the past, in order to get to a different solution, you have to be willing to show up in a vulnerable space to see if you get a different result. That's really hard, because when you're a kid and everything going through this, and people have let you down and they didn't show up for you and invalidated you, dismissed you, demeaned you, everything is like, as an adult, I don't even got to put myself through this. Like, I really avoid a lot when it comes to my family, because it's like, I don't know what I'm going to get from out of y'all. So it's like, let me just avoid altogether, unless I feel like I don't give a fuck. Like, in the moments where I feel like I don't give a fuck, then I show up as my full self and I have a good time and I have fun and everything. But when I'm in my head and everything, I'm going to not show up and give nobody Dejanay. I'm going to give you a reserved, very closed off part of me. Um, it's funny because, like, my cousin, every time we're talking nowadays, she brings up and she says, like, oh, every time you come around, you look like you don't want to be fucked with, or you look like can't nobody talk to you, or whatever the case may be. And low key, it's like, sometimes it is that. Sometimes it really is that. And in my mind, I would love for it to be something different, but that takes a space of vulnerability. And when you sit back and you see how much the family isn't changing, it doesn't make you want to run and be vulnerable. Like, luckily for us, like me, my sisters, and my cousin, like, we do like these girl night girls' nights things where we get to show up and be vulnerable and put ourselves in a place of vulnerability and have the support and comfort and everything. But everybody in this family isn't doing that. So it's like you really don't know how you're going to be received if you show up as you to this family because you was rejected previously, and you really don't know how it's going to be received. And mostly I really don't know like what I have in common with everybody. So that'd be the thing too. Is like I don't be knowing what to talk about. I don't be knowing none like I really just don't be knowing because there is no relationship built with anybody. And low key, that's why like it's important to me to figure out how to incorporate them into this podcast because at least with this, I know what to talk to them about because everybody got feelings, everybody got emotions. Now everybody might not want to talk about them, but that's where I feel comfortable in. I feel comfortable here talking about my stuff and going through what I've been through and how it made me feel and how it's impacted me. Like this is comfortable to me. And if I could sit down with somebody and have a conversation about their stuff and everything, at least it'll bridge a gap. It'll rock us forward because then I can relate to you on a deeper level and everything. And then maybe we can talk about something when we just get around each other that, maybe we couldn't have talked about before. So it's like this podcast will hopefully help me bridge the gap where I don't feel the trust that, I would like to feel. Um, I I do coaching sessions right now, and I was talking with the coach, and I realized that I I really realized this like some months ago, but like just how much I don't trust my family. Like, and I was telling him too, like, low key, I feel like I trust strangers more than I trust my family. And that's weird. Like, that shouldn't even be the case. Like, the ones that, you know, you have love for and that love you, those should be the ones you trust. But for some reason, I can be myself fully with people I don't know because it's like this clean slate you have, which is why I feel like a lot of people, like a lot of people, are so quick to just shut down and move on to the next person because it's like I can show up as my full self. Like there is no until like something that they don't like of you comes up, but it's like I really can show up as my full self, and I'm so confident in who I am that if you don't like it, oh well. But like with my family, because there's so much pain and hurt and everything tied to me showing up as my full self and being rejected, it's like it's really hard for me to do that nowadays. But I had a very vulnerable moment with my sisters and my cousins like about 2-3 weeks ago where I let them know about the white thing and the identity thing and how it really played a part on my life and even how it kind of shows up today. And whereas like maybe when we were younger and more immature, they would have rejected it, dismissed it and everything. Like it kind of was it kind of was dismissed a little bit when we first started talking about it, but towards the end of the conversation, everybody was very receptive of what I was saying, and they were very, you know, um, apologetic and willing to do something different so that I can get different outcomes with them and everything. And so it was a very sincere moment because it allowed me to see that there's people in this family doing the work, or at least working on doing the work, and that makes me very happy. And so it gives me hope that I can show up as my full self with the people that I love because I don't want to hide the person I am from them, but I don't want the person I am to be shut down either. And so I do want to call them to greatness to know if they've evolved and give them the chance to show up and do something different. But it is scary. It is a challenging thing, and it's not going to be easy. But if I want to continue to be around them and not be a Debbie Downer, because I do think that my energy kills the vibe. Like I think that I'm a special kind of person where when my energy is off, it throws off everybody's energy, because I usually am so bright and light and happy and everything. So when my energy is thrown off, or like my mood is off, it throws off those around me, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to cause, any imbalance in the environment around me. That's not, who I am and what I want to put out into the world. But it is going to take time for me to build that trust, especially now that I'm coming to the realization that I don't trust them. I don't trust them. Um, so it's going to take time, but I do have to put myself in situations with them to be able to grow the child up inside of me, because in a lot of these moments, the reason why I show up the way that I do, which is like kind of not at all, is because the little kid in me has a grudge and a vendetta against them. The little kid in me that really couldn't do anything except for scream, cry, and get talked about even more. She couldn't really do anything. So in order for me to be able to grow her up and bring her, along for the ride, I have to be able to put myself out there and take the knowledge and the wisdom that I have now and utilize it in the moments where I do feel disrespected or made fun of or anything like that, and not keep it all inside. Because you can only get picked on and picked at for so long before you pop out in the worst way. Like low key, that's kind of how I just lost my job. Is the guy at the wellness group kept making comments about me, and for the most part I thought that it was rolling off my back and it wasn't bothering me and stuff like that. But it took that one time for him to say something crazy on top of everything else. I just wasn't feeling it that week, no way. But all it took was that one comment, and I said something quick, fast, and in a hurry, and before you know it, I'm getting fired for verbal abuse, quotation marks around verbal abuse. But it's just like, in order to grow up that impulsive kid that's gonna just shout out whatever, I gotta be able to communicate effectively in those moments or advocate for myself when things are bothering me, and when something is inappropriate. Because as strong as I am, you can only be strong for so long before you weak out a little bit, like before you get a little crack in the armor, get a little chink in the armor or whatever. Like you can only be so strong before the foundation cracks, and so you got to be mindful. And so I want to be able to grow up the little girl inside of me that used to have to take being picked on and everything, um, so that I can advocate for myself and let people know, like, hey, I don't like that comment. You stepping on my toes now. Like, can you not do that? Or really be able to advocate for myself and not just endure it. But it's not gonna be easy, because you also still have this mindset of, like, especially if it's an adult, which it's crazy because I don't even care that you're an adult sometimes. But it's still like, is this appropriate to say? But I am an adult, so it is appropriate to say. So it's like learning how to combine the child with the adult so that you can show up the best way for yourself. Um, but I am working on it, because now I was dealing with this dude a few months ago. I met him around my birthday time. Um, and when I was hanging out at his house, he was doing like a lot of different things that reminded me. Well, I really didn't know that the triggering was coming from my past family stuff until after the situation. But it was bothering me, like the little comments he was making, like he was trying to be funny and make jokes, but it was really picking at me and stuff like that. Like, it just was very similar to that of what I went through as a child. Like, his playfulness was not playful to me. And it's funny because, like, the way in which, because I had the conversation, because I advocated for myself, I like let him know, like, I was like, you know, everything you've been doing like kind of feels like torture a little bit. But it sucks that I used that word for him because it was new, and it was like the first few times of me really being around him, so he didn't torture me. But that was the words that should have been used for my siblings and my cousins when I was younger, because it did feel like torture. I feel like I was being tortured. Like, I ain't gonna hold you, like, it felt like torture, which is why I was trying to escape it, is because it was so everyday and obnoxious that it really felt like torture. So, I communicated that to him. I wish I wouldn't have used that word, but it's over and done with. He gone now. Um, but it's just like, you never know what's an issue until you go through it with somebody else. Like, it's not until somebody rubs up against it and opens up the wound that you even realize, like, what is still impacting you. Like, I would have never known. Well, I would have never been able to tie all of it together, like the trust, the torture, the all of that, without him coming into my life doing that and like really brushing up against that wound, because it opened up a whole door for me and made me realize just how guarded I was when it came to like family. Um and it's weird because like we had just met, but we were doing the fast thing. When you're toxic, you move everything fast, so the person end up being really close, like, the toxic stuff. So it's like it went by so fast that he ended up like basically reminding me of like family because of like every like it just, but it wasn't his wound to carry. And had I known that, I wouldn't have communicated in the way that I did. I would have definitely been on some, hey, what, like, why do you make these comments about da 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 da? I wouldn't have told him it felt like torture had I, been cognizant of that. But, that's why self reflection is a good thing. And if he was really meant to be in my life, he would have, tried to figure out communication and all this other stuff. But, new people come in and out, and that's okay, for like us, as we're on this healing journey and everything, stuff is going to come up for you. Are you going to be able to communicate it effectively when it comes up for you? Probably not. You might tell somebody they're torturing you, and that might have been misguided. You might tell somebody that you fear them leaving and you just met them. Like, and it might be misguided. Like, you may communicate it in the worst way, but the thing is like to be aware that those feelings and everything are coming up for you, and then to go back and reflect and figure out where it's starting and how to navigate it, because a lot of this stuff you're going to bump into it in this world by other people, because that's the energy you're putting out into this world, is for you to attract all your bullshit so you can figure it out, right? Like, all of the pain and everything, I think we radiate our pain. So we're going to attract people to come in and poke at our pain that's just going to be able to help us, because everybody's a reflection to us. So they're going to come in and they're going to agitate a part of you for you to figure out where it's stemming, how to navigate it, and how to work your way through it. So I definitely appreciate that he came into my life to do that and wake me up to the what was going on with all of those emotions. But I'm also glad that he left out after I communicated that way, because that was the first time I ever communicated effectively about my shit, and he left out. It goes to show, like, as you work on your emotional intelligence and advocating for yourself, and like, granted, like I said, the torture word probably wasn't the best word, but I advocated for myself. I said it in a very respectful way. It was all cutesy. Was I laying on his chest? No, I was laying next to him. We were talking. It was like cool, chill voice and everything. But I was like communicating with when in the past, I would have never even said no shit like that. Like, I would have never even been that vulnerable. So it's like, you just realize, like, you start doing things to help yourself little by little every day, whether that's having conversations with your family or having conversations with dudes or women that come into your life or having conversations with anybody. Like, you just slowly start advocating for yourself and showing up for yourself. And the people that truly care about you or want to get to know you, they're going to figure out how to communicate and navigate that space with you. And for the people that don't, fuck them. Like, let them keep it pushing. Get to stepping. Like, I would rather you leave out my life because you can't handle my honesty than you stay in my life and play with me. Mm-mm. Get the fuck ASAP. Like, I would rather you reject me now than for you to reject me later. Like, reject me now, please. When I'm being 100% honest, because that's the only way you're gonna know who your people are. Like, genuinely, honestly, truly, we need to be developing communities around us, that 5 to 10 people that I always talk about. Like, and in order to do that, you have to show up authentically as yourself. And that's when things are good and when things are bad, and be able to communicate the bad in an effective way so that you get to a good space. And whoever can't handle that bad, deuces. Deuces. I see you on the flip side. Like, that's the space that I'm learning to get to. And it's not going to be a fast process. Telling people how you feel is not easy by no means. Um, but it is something that you do with one foot in front of the other. One, you take one step in front of the other so that you could eventually get to the place where you feel super duper comfortable. Hey, when you said that, that bothered me. What's up? Like, is that who you are? Did you mean to say that? Were you like, you can have real conversations with people to figure out who they are and what they're gonna do for your life. Like, and then you can figure out how to navigate that situation. So, but yeah, I literally have learned a lot from going through the different things that came up for me because of my emotional abuse. Like, it really has played like a big part in how I have been showing up in general. Like, I'm even getting back to my confident, like, slowly but surely. I'm getting back to my confident space because I was once so confident and that was stripped from me, and now I'm getting back to that, and it feels really good to be getting back to that place of confidence. So yeah, do the work, advocate for yourself, show up for yourself. That's the best form of self-love, is to show up for yourself in the good and the bad, especially that. Because if you don't show up for yourself, who else is going to do it for you? Not everybody's going to always consider your feelings, especially if they don't even know what you're feeling. So show up for yourself, communicate effectively when something is wrong. And that's when you know that you have emotional intelligence. I'm learning to get there. It's going to be a process, but we're going to get there. So, yeah, that's it for this week. Emotional abuse. Next week, I'm going to talk about sexual abuse. Again, me personally, I was not sexually abused where it was repetitive, but I did have 2 sexual misconduct activities that I want to go through because one of them still play a major part of my life today. And I want to be able to share that and also have other discussions surrounding that. But that's what I'm going to go through next week. Hopefully, you all were able to take something from this, relate in some way. I wish I had the original video because I actually had the tears and everything. You can see that I cry on cue. Like, my body really releases tears when I am emotionally overwhelmed. But God didn't want that one to come out. But this one is coming out. So I will be sharing this one. Um, and I will be tuning in with y'all next week. But until then, like, comment, subscribe. Definitely comment if anything resonated or you want to share or anything like that. That'd be great. But like, comment, subscribe, and then check me out on all streaming platforms because, baby, I'm on all streaming platforms. Because for a second, Spotify was messing up. I guess they don't take MP4, so I had to figure out how to do MP3, but we on track now. So I am on all streaming platforms. So check me out. Yes, sir, Bob. But yes, I will tune in with y'all next Wednesday, 7 o'clock. I will see y'all then. Until then, this is Talk Your Shit with Deja, where we drop the eye because not only can I talk my shit, but I want you to talk your shit too. Peace. See y'all later. Bye.